All right.
Hi, everybody. It's Michelle Coupage here with you. I have a wonderful guest with me here today. I have Mary Sterenberg. She is from a company, a group called Salt Effect. If you've listened to me before, you may have heard me interview her business partner, Kirsty. But I have Mary on with me today because we have their business, Salt Effect, is branching out to really reach working moms in a very unique way. And you know what? I'm just going to let Mary speak about this, introduce herself, about why she and Kirsty went this way and what their organization is all about, because they can put it into much better words than I can. So, Mary, welcome today. I'm so glad that you're here. Why don't you share with everybody a little bit about who you are, who Kirsty is, who Salt Effect is, kind of how you got here.
Yes, thank you, Michelle. I'm so excited to be with you. I love any opportunity to speak with other working moms. I have been a working mom ever since my children were born, and I have 3 kids, 2 boys who are tweens and a 6-year-old daughter. So I just have a real passion and connection with other working moms. So I appreciate this opportunity. But yes, as Michelle said, my coworker and colleague, Christy Sigler, and I started a business about a year ago. We are teaching colleagues at a large state university, and we teach different subject matters, but we work closely together, and we have kids about the same age. And we started noticing that there were some things that we were not incorporating into our families' lives that we wanted to, and it was just so hard to make the time, and it was hard to find the resources. And primarily, I'm talking about community service and looking for ways to give back and connect our kids to their communities and just to broader social issues. And actually, this really came out of a course that Christy teaches. It's a persuasive communication course. And the way she set that up was to connect her college students to nonprofits and help them build persuasive speeches to get students to want to donate and support these nonprofits. And what she saw was that many students were completely unaware of the importance of some of these issues and the depth and the breadth of some of these issues. And they really did not understand the number of organizations that were doing something about them or their own power to do something and be part of that. So that really spurred her to say, you know what, we need to back this up to kids who are even younger and our own kids, because there are things that we can do in our own communities, in our own neighborhoods, no matter what the age of our kids. And when we dug into the research a little bit more, it was staggering the impact that this can really make on kids and families. The levels of confidence that are built in kids when they understand the value that they can bring to their own communities, and when they understand the contributions and the powerful contributions they can make through small things and big things. So as we explored that a little bit, we realized that families are just busy and they don't know where to get credible information, and they don't know how they can volunteer and give back as a community. So we began our business looking specifically at that and kind of putting together boxes that would help families have all the resources that they needed to do a community service project. So we did a box about giving hope to sick kids, where we educated families about children who have, chronic or terminal illnesses and ways you can give back in that area. We did a box about veterans, and everybody loved the concept of our boxes, us included, and we partnered with nonprofits, and we really thought it was a wonderful concept, and we still do. But what we found was that moms would subscribe or purchase our boxes, and then the boxes would sit. And despite their very best intentions, it was just so hard, even with the resources kind of packaged up for them, to find the time to fit that in. And so what we really started looking at was, why do we have we know this is a good thing. We've given you the resources and made it a little bit easier for you. Why is it then hard to kind of close the loop? And what we found was that, time is just such a premium, and a lot of the working moms that we specifically work with are overwhelmed, right? They're not able to find time to even do the things that they feel are the very most important things for their family. So we decided to pivot our business model a little bit and say, maybe we need to kind of get at the heart of that issue, and that if moms could kind of restructure things a little bit and figure out different ways to incorporate giving back and kind of other important elements, that maybe that would then open up some time for some of these community service opportunities that maybe we were a little bit ahead of where we needed to be to meet busy working moms kind of where they were. So
Yeah,
that's
I
when we
think
pivoted a little bit to a business model that looked at educational resources and really helping moms undergo somewhat of a mindset shift and say, okay, I'm a really good mom and I'm a high achieving mom and I'm good at my job and I'm a good parent, but am I the best parent? You know, am I really prioritizing the things that I wish I were prioritizing? And if I'm not, how do I make time for that? And how do I kind of stop and take a little bit of a break? And the analogy that really hit home for Christy and I was the analogy that if you're on a bike, right? If we're all riding our bikes and every day is this kind of frenzied bike ride, you know, there are things that we can do to make that bike go faster and faster and faster, right? We can plan our schedules a little bit better. We can pull in resources that make our lives a little bit easier, but still we're going to hit a point where we can only ride that bike so fast. Our other option is we stop the bike temporarily and we get in the car, right? It's a better, faster, more efficient use of our resources. It's a better way, but if all we do every day is just keep keeping on and riding that bike, we never have the opportunity to actually look for a better way. So what we're trying to do with moms now is give them the resources and the education to take that brief stop to figure out what it looks like for them to get in the car. So some of the areas that we really want to emphasize, you know, community service is a big one of those areas, and educating moms on the big and small ways that you can incorporate that into your family and really truly the difference it could make if you do kind of make it more of the fabric of your family. And Christy and I, even in our two families, that looks very different. So Christy's family went on a mission trip to Mexico this summer, and it was a really big impact on her boys. And that was a really big thing, right? That was the first time they'd done something like that as a family, and it had a tremendous impact, especially on her tweens, right? That is a very stressful time for kids, and it's a very stressful time for moms. And she saw such an attitude shift in her boys after they saw the different ways that people live, and they had a little bit of a different perspective on what they have and what they don't have and what they can give to others. In my family, I've got small.
You know, with I think that's really great too, with Christy taking her family at the age of her kids, because they have a little bit more perspective of the world already. They know what their own little world looks like, but they know that there's a bigger world out there. And to see, you know, other people that are otherwise just like them, you know, the same age, with parents, and the parents maybe that work or don't work, you know, it's just an interesting and a great opportunity, I think, at that time for them to take that kind of adventure together. Great learning, great bonding, great exposure. So I'm sorry to interrupt, but
That's okay.
I just really, I never thought of doing a mission trip with my own family. So I think that's great that Christy did that, because now it gives me an idea.
And she'll tell you herself that the way her summer went this year, there was a moment when she thought, we should not be doing this year, financially, time-wise. I mean, there was a point when it felt very stressful leading up to the trip. And then they went and she thought there was nothing better we could have done than this trip. So that was wonderful for her family this summer. For my family right now, it's smaller things. It's looking for ways, even with our own school district or the groups that we're part of, or even just individuals, to say, you know what, somebody mentioned they're having a hard week, or someone's grandmother passed away. We really need to do something for them. All the way up to things, you know, maybe our church has a habitat build coming up in a couple of weeks, or things like that, where it's age appropriate, but they see that we are going to make time for those things, even with busy sports schedules and everything else. So that's one big area. Another big area we spend a lot of time in is gratitude. It's just the stats about this upcoming generation are a little bit sad sometimes. You know, we look at some of the suicide rates. I've seen a lot about that this summer, and just some of the mental health issues that we see with our college students. You know, there's so much going on, and, you know, we don't want to minimize any of those serious issues, but even things like having a real practice of gratitude in your house can make an immense difference to happiness levels, contentment levels, physical and mental health. I mean, the data on that is pretty staggering. So we do a lot with, looking at ways to incorporate an attitude of gratitude in your household and kind of what you can do about that.
Mm-hmm.
Other things we look at, active listening. We are definitely in a society of distraction. My phone's buzzing over here on my left and I'm like not looking at it. But, some of the things we've seen from kids, there was I think a second grade teacher who had a post. She had an assignment for her students and said, what piece of technology would you get rid of now? Do you think was maybe not a good invention? And so many of the kids said cell phone. They said, my mom and dad are on their cell phone all the time, and they don't feel like we're listening or giving them quality time. Mm-hmm. So those phones are amazing resources, but I think sometimes we are pulled in more directions than ever before when our kids do need some kind of focused time, and our kids are pulled in a million directions with technology. So,
mm-hmm.
The art of listening and spending that focused time, and then of community and just having a support network and having the relationships built in your own life as a working mom so that you are fully supported and you're modeling that ability to not only help others, but rely on others. So those are some of the key areas that we're really helping moms to take on a mindset shift and say, okay, what would a better busy household look like in our life? So the course that we're actually building and are launching soon, and we'll relaunch periodically, is called Good Busy, Bad Busy. And it really is about the fact that we know as working moms, you will never not be busy, right? That is not the goal to get rid of the busyness. The goal is to mold it into a busy that is the best for your family and that still embraces some really, really important things that are so easy to lose in like that daily grind.
Yeah.
So that's really where we're going now, with the hope that once we can facilitate that mindset shift, that then there will be space for things like community service.
And I think that's great that you point out, taking the time to be more intentional with the busyness that you have and have it be productive as opposed to just busyness to be busy to do an activity.
Mm-hmm.
In the working world, we always have goals that we're going for,
Mm-hmm.
that we're reaching for, and we have, stepwise things that need to take place in order to achieve those goals. And we know exactly what needs to be done, why it needs to be done, who's responsible. But when we think about our family life, I'm speaking for myself here.
Mm-hmm.
When I think about family life, I really don't do that. I've never really done that until actually quite recently, thinking about what's the goal? What do I want out of the family? What do I want it to look like? What can we do to create that and to make that happen? And I think that's one piece that most of us don't really think about when we talk about our family. And yet we're molding our children and trying to guide them and lead them. But if we're not intentional with what we're doing, but instead we're just keeping everybody busy, I think a lot of what we really want to instill in them gets lost.
Right. And you make a good analogy with work. If you have goals that you want to achieve at work, if you're not focused on those, you could easily spend all of your days answering emails and going to meetings, and those larger behind the scenes goals would not see progress. Mm-hmm. But if you are intentional about those goals, you can still answer the emails and go to the meetings, but you will also make intentional progress toward those larger goals at the same time. But it's so easy to let those things. Another analogy I like to use in my life is I like to run, and I like to run, half marathons and things like that. When I don't have a race coming up, I don't make time for it. But when I do have a race coming up, I magically can find time in the same exact schedule that is very busy and has a lot going on, because I have that intentional goal in mind. And I will find time and space where it may not look like there's time and space. Mm-hmm. So that's really what we're trying to do, is say, do you know what you value most in your family? And we've got some really good exercises that help walk moms through identifying, because it's not the same for every family, right? For my family, travel is really important, and adventure is really important. For other families, there are different things that are things that you really want your kids to grow up and leave and say, you know what, I really remember this from my family, or I really took this. That I heard from my son yesterday. It was one of the biggest moments of pride in the last couple of months. But he volunteered at they were doing a flower sale at school,
Mhm.
and they had asked some of the sixth graders if they were willing to give up their recess to help unload these mums from a truck.
Mhm.
And so we were talking in the car, and he said, "You know what, Mom? That felt really good to do that. It was only one recess out of like 180 recesses this year. And my friend didn't really want to do that because he wanted to go play something else." I said, "Man, it's just one recess. Doesn't it feel good to help out a little bit?" And I thought, "Oh, I'm doing something right. Something's getting through to your 12-year-old boy brain." So, those are the kind of things that just show me those glimpses that I'm hopefully really getting to some of those things that I will be really proud if he leaves my house and takes those with him.
Yeah, and you raised a great point about just, him doing something that, maybe his friends didn't want to do, but obviously something you've been doing in the background as a mom has led him to the point but to say, it's okay that I'm doing this and my friends aren't. And actually, I recently spoke with Michelle Mitchell, who is a speaker and author from Australia, and she has a whole program that she recently released about teaching kids that it's okay to stand alone, and
Mm-hmm.
what circumstances is it okay and why is it okay. And I think that, obviously when we as parents, as moms, take the time in our busy working schedule and take time out of our kids' busy active schedule to
Mm-hmm.
be more intentional about what we're doing, obviously it's going to create great things. Now, you had mentioned gratitude, and I just wanted to share
Mm-hmm.
also something recently that came up in our family. Part of my teen daughter's religious ed program is that they have required all of them for a week to text the family with basically a statement of gratitude or affirmation,
Mm-hmm.
something that can show that they love the other members of the family. And I just thought that was such a wonderful, simple thing that, probably each
Mm-hmm.
of us could do, even as moms, because our kids, they, they're so much into technology, as you mentioned, and texting is often the way that they have learned to communicate. They don't have this, face-to-face conversation. They just do a lot of texting. And so that could
Mm-hmm.
be an easy way that, we can be more intentional about showing our kids that we love them and we support them, and then vice versa. So every day, everybody in our family will be taking the lead as to sending out that morning message of gratitude or affirmation or for love of one another.
Oh, I love that. Yes. And those are things that no matter how busy you are, you have time for that. Right. And that really does, that could change someone's day and your family to see that, or it kind of forces some of those perhaps early teenagers to say, okay, for a minute, I just have to put that aside and really think about what I do appreciate for today or what I do have
Mhm.
versus what I don't have. So I think, that's great. Christy has a wall of gratitude in her house. So she did chalkboard paint on one wall.
Mhm.
And so whenever they have guests, they'll ask them to add something to the wall. And she said, I just have it right in my entryway as a visual reminder to me and everybody else in our family that, even during hard times or frustrating times, like there is something to be grateful for. It's a great way to keep perspective.
I love that. I love that. So can you talk to me a little bit more about this course that you have for busy
Mhm.
working moms?
Sure.
How much of a time commitment? Is it an
Mhm.
in-person event? Is it something they can do at their house? Can you
Mhm.
kind of lay out how this is going to be brought to the moms?
Sure. So we went with a webinar format. We know that that's somewhat familiar to our working moms on the work side of things,
Mhm.
though it may not be so much on the personal side of things. So we know it's a little bit of a stretch for a lot of working moms to think about taking a webinar for something that's more focused on your family. But what we like about it is the flexibility. So it's a 6-week course that has 5 modules, but we are going to drip out the content over the 6 weeks because we don't want to dump a bunch of content on moms and make them feel like they're behind from the start. But it is go at your own pace.
Mhm.
So the modules will come out week after week to try to lead you through it and give you some incentives and some accountability to finish content kind of week by week and move slowly through it. But absolutely, if you were to get behind or something a week, you could catch up later. It's mobile friendly or on your computer. So, in my mind, if I would probably, after the kids go to bed at night, is probably my quietest time or before they get up in the morning. 1 module a week that will focus on 2 lessons, and it will have downloadable PDFs, exercises to walk you through, videos. So basically we'll introduce a topic, say, here's what we're going to go through this week. We'll have resources. And then really it's a personalized to you framework that you're building. So for example, one module focuses on, values, and it walks you through how you establish your family values and what you can do with those values, and kind of getting that set before we move into, okay, well then what might community service look like for your family? Or what might gratitude look like for your family? So it is structured and research backed, but it also is flexible enough that you make it into something that is a personalized framework for your family. But 6-week workshop, 5 modules, it is online. We will run it live in October and then again in the spring. So if busy moms are liking the idea of having a community of other moms who are doing this at the same time, those are the times to get in, because that's when we're live. We'll be doing weekly live Facebook Q&As to go along with that. And there will be a community of other moms to kind of hold you accountable to say, okay, I've decided I want to do this and I want to commit to this, and I'm going to hold myself to it by knowing that others are watching to see if I'm kind of keeping up with those modules during that 6-week time frame.
And how long is each module? I mean, you said that there's going to be a webinar that they can watch. I don't know, how long is that, and how long can moms anticipate spending on working on the homework? And I understand it's obviously going to vary from person to person, but just to give some moms some idea, are they looking at blocking off an hour each week, or is it what can they expect?
No, that's a good question. I would say to actually watch the webinar materials and download things, you're talking an hour or less. And then how much time you spend going through and doing the actual exercises would just depend on, something might involve, okay, have a family meeting and really ask your family, what are the things that they enjoy most that you do together, or things like that. So depending how long you want to spend on those other elements, it would scale from there. But I would say for actually going through the materials, about an hour a week.
And that's an hour over a whole week to get through it. So I think that's very doable for working moms. Like you said, I mean, your quiet time is after the kids go to bed. I'm an early riser, so I like to do some things before, the rest of the household gets up. But an hour is something that I could do, even if it's just, 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, but I'll get it all done. And then, I drive a lot. So that's when I probably can process a lot of the exercises that you'll be giving in part of your PDFs. So that's a good, I think that's a good amount of time for a mom to get some value out of it, and also be able to commit to it, to really put the work in and get something out of it too.
And we did 5 lessons over 6 weeks intentionally, because we know that things come up. So we've got a little bit of a cushion in there as kind of catch up time. So if there is a time during 1 week that you lag, there's an ability to make that up.
That's great. And then it's great that it's a webinar too. So you're not geographically confined. So if somebody doesn't live close to you, they can still participate in this whole program, because, it is a webinar, and they can just log in from wherever they're at and do things at their own pace. So even if somebody is listening to this from, Australia, all the way around the other side of the world, they can still get something out of it and sign up for it.
Right. And as teachers, we are moving so much into that online teaching space that we've really developed some best practices for, reaching students in different ways via the online, so we can provide resources in different ways. And so you can even kind of customize your learning in that way. If you like to sit at a desk at a computer and do it in that way, the webinar can work for that. If you want to be curled up on your couch with your phone and a chunky blanket and your printout, the webinar can work for that.
I love that. And that's a great point that you bring up again, is that both you and Christy are educators. That is your professional background. So the way that you will be presenting all of this information is in a very digestible format and way that, people can learn, because there's different ways that people learn. So I love that you just brought that again to my attention, is that you guys are teachers, how to teach. And this is, that's what sets this program apart from maybe some other programs that are out there for busy working moms.
Right. And we just know how much we and the busy moms we work with, you'll pull something from a blog post here, or you'll see something great on a Facebook moms group here, but it's kind of ad hoc in that way, and whatever fits you at the time. So this really is just you saying, I'm going to commit an hour a week or a couple hours a week for 6 weeks to really go through something a little bit more intentional. And Mary and Christy are going to pull together in a cohesive way some really great research-backed information and resources so that I don't have to do that. And what would take me many hours on my own is condensed down to just what's the very best and the most applicable in a shorter amount of time.
I love that. Oh my gosh, so much good stuff here. I'm so excited for you to bring this to all the working moms. I hope that everybody listening and watching takes advantage of it. I will be sharing links to their program that Mary just talked about in the notes here, so you can go check it out. Hopefully that you'll, people that are listening and watching will sign up for it, because I don't know, it's tough these days as a mom. Being a working mom makes it that much more critical to be very intentional. And all the tips and tricks that you can give to somebody like me, so greatly appreciate it.
No, great. Thanks for having me so much. We do have a heart for working moms as working moms ourselves. And we just think that there's so much change that could happen in the world that would start with those busy working moms who feel like they maybe don't have time to do one more thing. The power in that group is just so strong.
Wonderful. Thanks again so much for being here and telling us a little bit about Salt Effect and your upcoming programs that you're launching. And I can't wait to hear from the other moms that participate in it about the results they're seeing. I'm very excited for you. So thanks so much for being here, Mary.
Thanks, Michelle.
Alrighty.